All right, so we can go ahead and get started. I know people will trickle in as we are starting here, but like I was saying, Jessica is the one panelist that could join us today. Alan and Robert cannot join us. For if those that are in here, if you ask the forensic science questions, we do have another session with Robert teaching, talking about his forensic science course that I would encourage you to attend, as he will be able to join that Q&A. He just has started class and he won't be able to join today. So Jessica, if you are ready, let's get started. As far as virtual labs, Jessica, how do you do virtual labs now that it's kind of at a distance?
Well, students just have to be willing to think, come up with things that they can use that are around their home. And I was just telling you that example earlier, like if kids, before they ever use black fingerprint powder, because it gets everywhere whenever they're fingerprinting, a little bitty bit goes a long way, and they can practice with, cocoa powder or like chocolate powder, or they can even use maybe dirt if it's dry, for practicing, lifting prints. You can't really do, you asked earlier about assessments. I guess it's possible you could have them assess over a hands-on activity, but when you remove the interaction with other people, like two students, like one student cuffing another student, and you're going to test them over the accuracy. You follow your rubric, but the problem with virtually on doing that is the kid doesn't have another person to cuff. They don't have the equipment probably at home. Not that many students, Now, but if it's a lab experiment where they can actually follow, the directions, and they go through those directions to decide, how to complete that lab. And then if they come up with, they have to show you like their completed responses, what they discovered in doing that experiment at home.
Thank you, Jessica. I just wanted to cover one topic. There's a question about curriculum for correction courses. So that's something that we currently don't have, but we are working on that in the future. So I just wanted to answer that question real quick. And thank you, Jessica, for also answering that next question about hands-on competencies, as you talked about the cuffing, as that's kind of hard when you're at a distance. So here's another question. How do you do a virtual crime scene and processing as an activity where they actually learn how to properly process the crime scene? I know you might have answered that, but if you just want to talk about that as well.
Where they have to process the crime scene virtually?
Yes.
You could set up a well, for instance, I've read, I haven't actually done this yet because we offer CSI every other year, but that's something I'm going to offer this year. Kids can complete a crime scene like project, and they create it in like a box. So it's like a miniature version of the crime scene. It's not like, out in a parking lot. It's like in a box, and they just have to create it and get as creative as they can get, putting these little pieces together and showing exactly, where's the primary crime scene, where's the secondary crime scene, and then they, can map it out, and then walk you through what happened, why they believe that this is what happened, and the whole mentality behind it. It's going to be different than if you did it face to face. It's not going to be the same. Are they still learning the same information, the basic information? Yes, they're still learning that. They're just not doing it physically with their hands in real, and that is, some people are, hands-on learners. I'd say a lot of my students are. That makes it a little more complex on us as educators. We've really got to think about what exactly we're asking them to do, and what are our expectations? What are we looking for? So you've got to know that up front. You've got to have that rubric established, and So it's going to be a little bit different than, you can't just say, go look at this ICEV lesson. Okay.
Thank you, Jessica. So I had another question, and it goes back to how do you get your students involved? So we had a question about, teachers said their students aren't really active in the assignments. How do you get them to enjoy using ICEV and to be actively engaged in your assignment?
The kids don't like that I can see what they're completing, how often they're completing it, if they're staying on pace. They don't like that factor. As educators, we love that side. We think that is the best way to make sure that transparency is there. I like that. The kids don't. That's why but they're teenagers. They're not going to love, especially if they know on the front end what they've elected to do. But kids are just like grown-ups in the factor that we'd rather. I hate to say we're all lazy, but we are by nature kind of lazy individuals. So, but the kids really, they're just like, I don't want to do it, and they're going to complain about anything. So, it takes a lot of basically just showing their accountability. I always show them what I can see, and they're like, oh. Then it dawns on them that we can actually see how much time did they spend on that. Did they just go through and click, 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 and put anything down? Or, what were they doing during that whole class period? And I think that helps. But students always get that if they get to do hands-on that follows that session, where you have Zoomed, like virtually, students need to Zoom. And then face-to-face students, can be doing the same activity, but really more hands-on for the face-to-face. Any virtual labs that y'all use for forensic science also have I purchased the last?
Yeah, so I saw that chat. To answer that question, the students, when they purchase their ICEV license, they are able to log in on their account and they complete assignments on ICEV as well. I did have one more question for you, Jessica. There was a question regarding resources of where you can get maybe a package for maybe some materials if you're doing a live testing for maybe a crime scene or something like that. I know you talked about getting creative at home with using a chocolate bar. Or are there any additional resources where you get that material for your students?
I use different resources outside of ICEV. Is that what they're asking?
Well, I think it's more of like the hands-on materials that they're going to actually be creating something.
They're saying, am I going to bring them to the kids at their home? No, I'm not. Now, if the kids do need certain, let's say, it really depends on how many students you have. If you have a small number of students, when I say small, I mean 50 or less. But if you have students like I do, over 200, then you're going to you're going to have trouble getting fingerprinting packs and all that to them, to their homes, all separately. The only other way I can see that you could do something like that is, how other athletics groups are meeting and doing like practice, they're like football's practicing right now. If they're allowed to do that, I don't know why we couldn't, even if the student was, homebound, like, couldn't leave their home. If they opted to do that hands-on, you could have them come on a certain day to do that. I think that you could probably do it that way, but you'd really have to, because nobody can afford to give all of your fingerprint stuff. And plus a lot of stuff that they learn in law enforcement is going to be hands-on, and they're going to have to touch stuff, including, searching a person and searching a car and searching up that kind of stuff. They're going to have to think outside the box and explain how they would do that, not necessarily physically do that. But I can see where people are like, but they need to do it hands-on. But if a kid can explain it to you really well, how they're going to do it, what's the order they're going to do it, and they know what they're talking about, then I believe that they'll be able to do it hands-on. It'll be different. It'll kind of hesitate because now they have an audience. But I think if you require the students to do like presentations that makes them speak, makes them get out of their comfort zone, that is probably you're gonna get them to practice their communication skills best. And that's something that kids get all, perturbed about, but they accept it in the long run.
Thank you, Jessica. That is all the time that we have. Again, a lot of forensic science questions, as we will have that presentation coming up with Robert. He gives a presentation as he's a forensic science teacher. I encourage you to join that, as Robert said he'll be able to attend that Q&A. But thank you again, Jessica, for joining us. And I know everybody is curious about the code. And so Dusty is going to put that in the chat of what the code is, but I will read it to you. Let me get that code to make sure I don't tell you the wrong number. I didn't have it pulled up, so do you have it put in there? One second, sorry about that. I lost my so the code that you can redeem to get points is, so it's secure, SECURE, law, secure law 049. And so that's the code to redeem, secure law 049. Thank you again for attending the session. Don't forget to redeem the session code in the CTE challenges. After the conference, you will receive a digital certificate based on the number of sessions you attend. So thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a great conference.